Foundation and the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. The crew had spent the last week surfacing the sub through open leads between ice flows or up through thinly iced-over lakes called polynyas. Their task was to implant meteorological equipment atop the ice for the scientific base to monitor. But an hour ago, they had come upon this inverted Everest of ice. "That's one hell of an iceberg," Brat whistled. A new voice intruded. "The correct term is an ice island." Perry glanced from the periscope. A gray-haired man with a neatly trimmed beard stooped through the hatch to enter the control room from the forward research decks. It was Dr. Oscar Willig, the Swedish oceanographer. He was accompanied by an ensign. The aging but wiry and hard-eyed Swede waved a dismissive hand toward the video monitor and nodded to Captain Perry. "It's a much more spectacular view from Cyclops. In fact, Dr. Reynolds asked to see if you'd join us there. We've discovered something intriguing." After a long moment, Perry nodded and folded up the periscope grips. He twisted the hydraulic control ring, and the stainless steel pole with its optic module descended into the housing below. "Commander Brat, you have the con." He stepped down from the periscope stand to join Dr. Willig. Commander Brat raised one bushy eyebrow as he passed by. "You're going to Cyclops? With all this ice around? You're a braver man than I am, Captain. True balls of brass." "Not brass." Perry tapped a knuckle on a wall plate. "Titanium." This earned a chuckle from his second-in-command. The Swedish oceanographer's eyes were bright with excitement as Perry joined him. "In all my years, I've never seen such a spectacular example of an ice island." Perry ran a hand over the stubble of his red hair, then motioned the older doctor ahead of him. The doctor nodded, turning, but he continued to speak rapidly, lecturing as if still in his classroom at the University of Stockholm. "These islands are rare. They originate when giant icebergs calve off the mainland glaciers. Then ocean currents drive these floating mountains into the polar ice cap, where they're frozen in place. Eventually, during the years of thawing and refreezing, they become incorporated into the cap itself." Dr. Willig glanced back at the captain as he climbed through the forward hatch. "Somewhat like almonds in a chocolate bar, you might say." Perry followed, bending his own 6-foot frame through the opening. "But what's so exciting about such a discovery? Why did Dr. Reynolds insist upon us mapping around this embedded almond?" Dr. Willig bobbed his head, leading the way down the main passage and through the research section of the sub. "Besides the rarity of these ice islands, because they have been calved from glaciers, they contain very old ice, and many even hold boulders and sections of terra firma. They are frozen glimpses of the distant past. Can you just imagine?" Perry followed, urging the doctor onward. "We dare not lose this chance. We may never find such an example again. The polar ice cap covers an area twice the size of your United States, and with the cap's surface worn featureless by winter winds and summer melts, such islands are impossible to discern. Not even NASA satellites could pinpoint such discoveries. Stumbling upon this mountain is a scientific gift from God." "I don't know about God, but it is intriguing," Perry conceded. He had been granted command of the Sentinel because of his background and interest in the Arctic region. His own father had served aboard the USS Nautilus, the first submarine to cross the Arctic Ocean and pass under the North Pole back in 1958. It was an honor to be adding to his father's legacy up here, to captain the Navy's newest research vessel. Dr. Willig pointed to a sealed hatch at the end of the corridor. "Come, you need to see this with your own eyes." Perry waved him on, glancing over his shoulder. The Polar Sentinel was divided into 2 sections. Aft of the control station were the crew's living quarters and the engineering levels. Forward of the bridge lay the research labs. But ahead, in the nose of the boat, where normally the torpedo room and sonar boom would be on a Virginia-class submarine, was the strangest modification of a naval sub. "After you," Dr. Willig offered as they reached the sealed door. Perry opened the hatch and pushed his way into the room. The muted lighting of the Sentinel ill prepared him for the blinding brilliance of the next change.